Okay, my friends, Hockey Illuminati podcast. We are back in action, bigger and better than ever. Episode 30 as we relaunch this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Frank Crosby. We got a very well-known former NHLer in the house with us today, joining the Hockey Illuminati Brotherhood, Mr. Anthony Stewart. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So we were, I see every night on CBC. On Saturdays last a while. By the way, you've turned into the biggest beauty on CBC. I think you got that crown right now, in terms of beauty status. But I had you on our live stream for a hot second, the Hockey Illuminati live stream, like maybe 2 weeks ago, and now here we are. So again, thanks for joining us, and let's jump right into it, buddy.
Let's do it.
Awesome. First of all, you got a sweet man cave going on in the background there. This your home office, I understand?
Yes, my home office, and I take no credit for the designing. My wife's a bit of a designer, so she made sure that she put up all the jerseys and made sure the gold medal was framed, and I got my first puck back there in the game sheet for my first NHL goal. So it's great to talk hockey for a living, but when you're at home, to live it as well.
Awesome, man. So, Stewie, you've got such an interesting road that you took to make it to the NHL. Not everyone knows about this path that you're on and kind of where you are now. It's incredible. So why don't you tell us about your childhood, and as well, maybe go as far back as your pops, who I understand immigrated from Jamaica. I'm sure the last thing he thought was that coming from country Jamaica, where there's no hockey rinks, he'd have two boys grow up to play in the show, right?
Yeah, I think that was probably the furthest thing from his mind. And I'm not sure he even knew what ice skating was, let alone hockey. But when he immigrated to Montreal right during the height of the Montreal Canadiens dynasty. So to this day, he'll sit here and he'll tell you about Bob Gainey and Larry Robinson and Guy Lafleur. And he used those Montreal teams and those players as a barometer for my brother and I's quality of play. So when I'm not doing well, he's like, well, you need to have Guy Lafleur's speed and Larry Robinson's tenacity. So he uses that as a measuring stick for my brother and I's career. But I got my start in Scarborough, Ontario. I got some hand-me-down equipment from my cousin Pat Barton, who he played some OHL and some East Coast hockey, and he went to a couple Edmonton Oilers camps. And the first time I actually went on the ice, my dad watching hockey on TV, they weren't wearing cages. Some of them weren't even wearing helmets. So he put me on the ice with just a bucket and no visor or cage on. So the coach quickly said, "Hey, sir, you got to put a cage on your son's helmet." And he said, "Well, you know what? We'll be back in a couple of weeks," because he had to save up the $40 to get it. So once he found out that I fell in love with the game and how much I enjoyed it, they found a way to gather the resources to make sure my brother and I can have an opportunity to play the game of hockey.
I mean, obviously hockey is not a thing in the Caribbean, but if there was one country in the Caribbean that was kind of hockey focused, maybe it is Jamaica. Like, they were the first team in the IIHF in 2012 to join. And you've also got the Subban brothers, as well as I believe Josh Hosang, are players with Jamaican descent as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so there's a lot of players with lineage to back to Jamaica, and they actually have a hockey team now that they're starting to get up. It's in the grassroots level now in the beginning stages. They did a couple B or C tournaments with the double IHF. So is it catching on there? Probably not yet, but there's a lot of family members from immigrants that came over, especially in the 70s and 80s. So like everyone else, when you're an immigrant, you want to acclimate to the culture. And the best way to do that is hockey. So my dad did a great job by bringing me to the rink and falling in love with the game. And the rest was history for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Jamaica before?
Oh, yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I've been there plenty of times too. But we sort of stay on the resort. My whole family's from Barbados. It's a little safer there. And Barbados, you can sort of take the bus into town and be fine. But Jamaica, I love it. I love going back to the Caribbean in the off season, especially as a player. Because again, you can't beat it. You can't beat the sun. You can't beat the R&R, and you can't beat the red stripe beers, as they say.
Oh my God, you're telling me, man. Jamaica's on my bucket list. Like, I've never been, but I've have such an affinity towards Bob Marley and his music, and it's just, I have to get there and get on the beach and play some of his tunes. It's just high up on the priority list for me to do. Where's the first place you're traveling to when all this craziness hopefully comes to an end soon, and we can boot around a little bit?
Probably to the hockey arena to get back on ice with the kids.
That's a good answer. There you go.
Yeah, I did a lot of traveling over the years as a player, and if it's longer than an hour drive, I'm most likely not going. So,
Okay.
so I'm going back to the arena. I coach 2 AAA teams in the Toronto area, so a lot of the kids are chomping at the bit to get back on the ice. So I'm going back and taking off the suit and tie and putting the tuxedo on and getting back on the ice with the young bucks who are ready to go.
Yeah. Speaking of young bucks, when you were a young buck back in the day playing with the North York Canadians as a 15-year-old, you put up 100 points in 34 games, right?
Yeah. So
So when you're doing this as a 15-year-old, does the idea start to sink in a little bit to say to yourself, yeah, you know what? Like I've got what it takes. Like the NHL is within grasp and I can make this dream come true. Like, does that kind of start to set into your mind a little bit that it's going to be a possibility?
Yeah, for sure. I think it happened actually a couple of years earlier at the Quebec Pee Wee tournament when a couple of prep schools approached my family in Maine and about possibly going and playing prep school in the United States. And so from 13 years old, I knew that was my goal, and I knew I had an opportunity to make the NHL at that young. So when kids tell me, hey, I'm an elite hockey player, I'm the best of the best, I'm like, well, you didn't put up 70 assists in 30 games, so you're not that good too. So I remember going back to my Bantam year, I was the best player in the league, not because of how many goals I scored and taking the puck end to end, is I made my teammates better. You know, I had Carcillo on my team and Brent Burns and Jeff Platt, who played in the NHL. And the one thing I can say is I made my teammates better. So that's sort of the measuring stick for some of these players. It's not, you know, you can score 100 goals in junior now, but you got to learn to play that pro game. And that's something I had to learn the hard way and, you know, putting up a lot of points. But the one thing I could say is I made my teammates better in minor hockey and especially in junior as well.
I would assume that you made your younger brother a better hockey player as well, right? Chris was probably looking up to you, seeing the success you were having. Talk about your relationship with him, what it was like as kids maybe competing against each other, and as well the relationship you had with him, or still have.
There wasn't really any competition because he was almost 3 years younger, and it's more like beating the crap out of him his whole life, toughening him up and getting him ready. But I think that's my number one accomplishment is helping him and being part of his success. You know, he quit from hockey. He quit hockey, and you know his story is widely known that in his draft year he quit to play football. It was just too expensive, and he didn't want to burden the family or burden another family to start paying. You know, at that time, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. So he said, you know what, I'm going to pick up a football, get some pads, and that's it. But when I came back from my third year in Kingston, he was playing some school hockey just for fun. He was a little heavy, probably 275 pounds, but he had amazing hands where he was just stick handling through the whole entire team and scoring goals. So I was like, you know what, like, do you still want to play? And he said, yeah, I guess. I said, well, if you get in shape, you train with me in the summer, I'll get you a tryout. So I didn't know how I was going to get the tryout, but I actually had to leverage my spot on the team and getting him that tryout. Because I said, hey, if he doesn't make this team and it doesn't work out, you can trade me and get all the draft picks you want. But I know my brother can play and he can contribute. So he came to camp, he lost the weight, and he had a great summer in the gym. And he made the team as a fighter. And he actually stopped. He was in and out of the lineup for the first 15, 20 games. But he actually got his opportunity when I went away to World Juniors that year. I was gone for a month. Right. And they just slotted him in my first line winger role, and he tore it up. I think he scored something like, I think it was like 16 goals in the final 30 games, and he was the captain of that Kingston team 2 years later in a first round draft pick. So just giving him that opportunity and believing in him, and him going on to have a great career and better career than me. That's I'm definitely proud of that accomplishment for sure.
There's a hot rumor that I picked up the other day that your brother, despite the fact he's a bigger guy, 6'2", 240 was his playing weight. Is it true that he has never lost a sprint in his entire life when it comes to racing other players?
He is fast, and he actually is really, really fast. The 1 year at Matt Nichols' training camp, he actually beat one of the sprinters on the Canadian national team in a 20-meter timed on the start block. So he was. Are
you kidding me?
Yeah, so it's a story that we never tell. We won't give the names up.
Wow.
We had electric timing, and he actually blew the guy out of the water by like 0.2 seconds. So just the power and the speed, and doing that at 240, like he was honestly, if he stuck with football, there's no doubt in my mind he'd be in the NFL just based on his size, speed, and him being half crazy as well.
Wow. And for those who don't know, what position did he play in football?
He was high school, so I think he was tight end, and he played everything. He played special teams, but I think he was a tight end. He was probably going to play at like 265, and he was probably 6'2", and he had the speed. So he'd be like Gronk. He would be Gronk out there. He could take a hit coming through the middle.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. Did football ever cross your mind in terms of, hey, maybe this is something that I can do?
The teams actually always try to get me to play football and rugby, but from 12 years old, I was like, I'm playing hockey. That's my goal. And funny thing is, I think I was in grade 11, and I was doing track and field. So I went to OFSA, and I was just doing track and field to stay in shape for my NHL draft. And I finished 25th in the 100-meter dash, and actually some football schools approached me saying, hey, you need to quit hockey and start playing football. And I'm like, well, I'm projected to be a first-round NHL draft pick. They're like, no, don't worry about hockey. Your future's in football. So it's fine. It's funny when you hear people say they can be multi-sport athletes, and I believe it because I've seen it with my brother and some of the opportunities that we've had over the years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And of course, that goal that you had became a reality when the Florida Panthers ended up drafting you. And then I'm sure one of the major highlights of your hockey career was being a part of what is widely known as probably the best World Junior team ever in hockey history, period, right? I mean, that 2005 Team Canada team, despite the fact they had, in my opinion, the sexiest jerseys, Bergeron, Perry, Richards, Getzlaf, Andrew Ladd, Crosby, Carter, Weber, Braden Coburn, Phaneuf, Seabrook, and yourself. It's how many Hall of Famers that I just named there? How many Stanley Cups and individual awards are there? I mean, playing on that team, I guess at the time when you first walked into the dressing room, did you look around and recognize the fact that I'm a part of something really, really special here? Or did it maybe take a few games ransacking teams to realize what you guys were really doing?
No, we realized it because we were talking about it, saying, hey, if this was an NHL team, it was during the lockout, that we probably would make the playoffs. All first-year players, a couple of guys played the previous year before the lockout, but we were talking about it. But we were men on a mission just based on the fact that the year before is when we were the young hot shots, 18-year-olds. The team was majority 18-year-olds, and we were supposed to run away with the tournament, and we lost in the finals to the U.S. after Marc-Andre Fleury shot it off of Braden Coburn. So we were supposed to run away with that tournament, and we blew it. So we came in that next tournament, meaning business. And I always tell the story, Brent Sutter threatened to cut me. I led the tournament in scoring the year before, and he's like, I don't care what you did last year. You're not performing. You better perform or you're getting cut. So I had to get my act together fairly quickly because, I had a couple games where I was the 13th forward. So I think just having Brent Sutter have the group accountable and saying, hey, you guys blew it last year. And, there's a lot of scouts in the standings and you guys want to play in the NHL. You have to deliver a big, big moment. So we came in from that game one and we just steamrolled every single team. It wasn't even close. And beat the Russians 6-1 in the finals. And I actually go back and watch the game and I'm like, Malkin was playing in that tournament. I don't even remember him in that final game. That's how dominant everyone was. But it was great just being around the Carters and the Crosbys and the Bergerons and just how amazing some of these guys were. You knew that most of these guys were going to step in the NHL and be like primetime players, not in year 5, but year 1 and 2.
I mean, I was watching some of the highlights the other night, and actually I'm going to pull something up, and we're going to take a walk down memory lane here, Anthony. One of the most memorable things from that final was Pierre Maguire's double Dion call, right?
Yeah.
Leeson, look out! Phaneuf had him lined up and just missed him. It's a double Dion. Now the defenseman falls. Here comes Crosby, and Crosby drive. Kuznetsov the save. Rebound. Perry for Bergeron. Score!
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, to this day I still use the double Dion. There's a big hit. To this day, I think all the commentators always say double Dion. So Maguire, he was a big fan. He was a little bit of a homer for some of the players now that I go back and watch it, but he loved Dion Phaneuf and every fan had to talk about him. So he hyped him up a lot, but Dion was a beast at that tournament, and he had the big shot, and he killed guys, and he had that scowl. And when he went in the NHL, guys probably laughed at him, but he was intimidating. Where guys were afraid to even go in the corners with him. So he was I believe 9th overall pick, but in junior he was a beast. Dion.
Yeah, he was terrifying as a young man, and very early on in his NHL career as well. In fact, I remember watching that final. I was visiting my family in Montreal, And I couldn't find the YouTube clip or very little about this, but in that final, did Phaneuf not knock Ovechkin out of the game?
I don't think it was Dion. I think it was Bergeron. I think Bergeron actually got a piece of him at the blue line, and I actually feel bad now that I look back at it. But we didn't really know he was gone until near the end of the game. We're like, oh, Ovi's out, and then he came back. He was watching the game sort of in the tunnel with his arm in a sling, and he was actually crying. So at the time, we were probably laughing at him. But now go back, I feel bad. But that just shows, like, Brent Sutter. When I'm telling you, he had us dialed in, like. If we had him as a coach in the NHL, I think we would have went a far way because he turned us into beasts where we're like, we're not just going to beat these guys. We're going to kill these guys. And from the first shift where I think it was Jeff Carter, or it was Getzlaf that scored the opening goal in the first shift. It was, we're coming out not just to beat you on the scoreboard, but beat the crap out of you physically as well.
And I remember did the Americans not tell you guys before the game started, hey, make sure you beat those Russian guys, because like they were kind of, the least favorite squad in the tournament, it sounded like. And did they not say something like that to you guys? We're like, please go out and beat them?
Yeah, I think we were on the same floor as them, right? But we didn't have any sympathy for anybody. Like the Americans were the year before. And I'm telling you, the way that we were dialed in, like we weren't even allowed to talk to other teams. We weren't even allowed on social media. It was go to the rink, go back, relax, play your cards, make sure you're in bed. Sutter's knocking on the door, making sure that we were not taking anything off, practice off, and you couldn't miss a pass in practice. So we weren't buddy with anybody until after we actually won the tournament.
Do you have last question on this topic? Do you have any good stories from that tournament? Maybe you could spill the beans on something Crosby related, post-game celebration, anything like that?
Well, the one thing I could say, the one thing that I remember from my World Junior experience was just the emergence of Sidney Crosby. The first year he was I think he was a 15-year-old, and he came in and he had like a minor role. He was playing third or fourth line, and I remember I actually like put my arm around him, like, hey, don't worry, kid, you'll be fine. Your time will come. And not knowing, like, I knew he was good, but I didn't know how amazing he was going to be, where I'm giving him a pep talk to the next year coming in, being the best player in the world. And I'm like, did this guy get superpowers? And I actually remember, I was at the 13th forward and I wasn't playing well at the time. And he actually came and put his arm around me saying, Stewie, don't worry, it'll be okay. So to see him go from, good player to best player in the world in a calendar year, it was amazing to see, and I was definitely impressed. And again, I was a fairly decent, top junior player, but he was on a whole another level. And we're like, you know what, this kid is going to the Hall of Fame. We knew that in that second tournament for sure. And people think, you know what, they're just gifted. No, but Crosby, I'm telling you, was the hardest working guy off the ice. He's training, doing training camps by himself, paying trainers to come to Colorado in the mountains, and he's working hard. He's working on every facet of the game. And people are saying, oh, he can't score 50 goals. And what did he do? He worked on his shot that summer and came in and won a Rocket Richard. So it's not just the talent, it's the work ethic that some of these top guys have that make them the elite of the elite.
And what's amazing with Sid too is that he hasn't got complacent a single bit in his entire career, right? Like, this is a guy that has all the individual hardware in the world, 3 Stanley Cups, gold medal hero, like, and the thought of taking his foot off the pedal even a little bit at his age, with all the injuries he's had as well, like, it has not crossed his mind. He is legit like a cyborg or something. He's on a whole other level. It's crazy.
Yeah, he retired last year and was going directly to the Hall of Fame, probably top 5-10 player of all time. And funny, I talked to Colby Armstrong, who's one of my colleagues with Sportsnet, and he said, he was a veteran guy, and he ended up in Pittsburgh. And Crosby's like, hey guys, it's time to go to the gym. And Armstrong's like, what? What do you mean the gym? We're in the NHL here. There's no gym. He's like, no, get your butt in the gym. So here's a young Crosby holding everybody accountable, making sure that nobody on the team is taking it easy. That's what makes him not just a great player, but a great leader as well. Yeah,
for sure, man. So you have this amazing gold medal moment, and then your NHL career begins with the Florida Panthers. And I remember as a Leaf fan, I was so upset that Joe Nieuwendyk and Gary Roberts left the Leafs to go join the Florida Panthers. But that was an interesting squad in your rookie year, right? Playing with those two guys. You had Luongo in net. You had Olli Jokinen, who, in my opinion, like one of the most underrated players of that generation was Olli Jokinen.
Yeah, it was great having Gary there and Joe. And Joe was actually at the end of his career, and he had some back problems where I think it lasted the 17 games the year that I was there, and the trainer actually had to come in and tie his skates before and take them off. That's how bad his back was. But once he got on the ice, just seeing him skate and make passes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And Gary Roberts, just his tenacity, and I was more scared of him than the actual coach because he'd give you that look. And my first year, I actually got hurt. I was done for the year, and I was on a line with him and Stephen Weiss. And just playing with them, it was easy. You know, Weiss can win the face-off. You get to Gary, he chips it in and rattles the glass, and you come in and clean up the mess. So I was actually on a pretty good pace. I think I had 3 points before I got hurt in my 10th game, and I was done for the year too. But just to be around guys like Gary Roberts and Joe Nieuwendyk and Jokinen. Jokinen was – I know it's probably a little bit much to say Hall of Fame, but he's probably one of the best players that I played with or against, because in Florida, we didn't really have great teams, and he was putting up 80, 90 points by himself, where the next, second place on the team would have 50 points. So he was getting 30, 40 points on his own.
Yeah. And of course, in true Maple Leaf fashion, they brought him in at the very end of his career for a quick cup of coffee, and he wasn't quite the same player, but that's okay. Yeah. Understand as well that you've got an interesting Olli Jokinen story.
Oh, that's funny. No, I tell that story all the time, and I'm sure Olli doesn't care, but you get paid back then. You get paid every 2 weeks, obviously, and there wasn't direct deposit, so they pay you by check. So I was at the front of the plane being a rookie, and I'd always be sniffing around trying to get back and hang out with the boys. And so my introduction to getting to the back of the plane was I had to come back and sit with Olli for about 5-10 minutes, and he would say, hey, take a look at this. And he'd reach into his bag and pull out his paycheck, and you'd see the big number, and he'd be like, oh, you like that, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to make that one day? And I'm like, yep. He's like, no, today's not the day. Back to your seat. So he'd come back and show me his paycheck every 2 weeks, and I'd be looking at that number. So I don't know if he was doing it to motivate me or intimidate me, but I got a good laugh about it.
Speaking of money, I mean, you've talked a little bit about your childhood and the fact that you and your family didn't grow up with a whole lot. When you have athletes that don't come from much, make it big and start to make big money, we've seen in a lot of cases, these athletes struggle with the lifestyle. They struggle from going from 0 to 100 so quickly. How did you manage that? And was it kind of a difficult thing to navigate? Again, coming from so little, and then all of a sudden being in a situation in your life where money is not really an object.
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle, right? You have financial guys that sort of try to help you out, but no one was telling me that I'm not buying my family a house, and I used my signing bonus to sort of buy my mom a house, the first paycheck that I ever got, and just the sacrifice that my family did, and in making the sacrifices to help get me to the NHL and putting in what little resources they had to help get me there. I went above and beyond to make sure that it happened. I could have waited a couple more years, but that's just the background that we have, that we take care of family. So when I couldn't do it after a couple of years, my brother stepped up, who had the big contract as well too. But most of our money that we spent was on family, and we wouldn't change that for the world. But with me, and I live well within my means now, and I'm not buying the big trucks and the big rims anymore too. But that's something that you got to get out of your system in your early 20s, and you learn more about being a little bit more responsible financially. And now that you have kids, now that I have kids, I'm making sure that you're saving a lot more than that you're spending. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I hear kids are expensive. That's just what I hear. I don't know.
Yeah. Times 4, then you got me.
Oh, you got 4. Wow. How old are your kids?
9, 6, 3, and 5 months.
Wow. Well, congratulations on the newest bundle of joy. And it certainly sounds like it's a bit of a madhouse in the Stewart residence with all these youngins.
They're in the basement right now, soundproofed.
Okay, good. There you go. So you spent the money to get the soundproofing. That's important.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that you bought for yourself when you were in your 20s? So, you finally get some dough, you got some dispensable income. Is there something that you kind of spoiled yourself on when you finally had some of that financial freedom?
I bought a Cadillac Escalade, and ever since I was 15, I'm like, I'm buying this Cadillac. And actually, when I first got drafted to Florida, I actually made the team, and I didn't get a contract. And we passed the deadline to sort of sign the deal, so I had to go back to junior. And Bobby Orr was my agent at the time, and I said, Bobby, I really need to sign this deal. I got to buy my family house. I got to buy my truck. I got to do all these. Like, no, don't worry. We'll go back to junior. We'll get you a better deal next year. We'll get you a truck. We'll get you your truck. So here I am in Kingston now, unsigned. and Bobby Orr leased me a Cadillac Escalade. I know though, I'm making $50 a week, and to fill them up at the time is $100, $100. So
Yeah.
here I am with a Cadillac Escalade on a major junior salary. After about a month, I'm like, Bobby, I can't afford this truck anymore. I can't afford to put gas in it. So as opposed to just having it sit around, we took it back and we got me a Jimmy. And but I made sure as soon as I signed that I got that Cadillac Escalade 2004. I actually still have it to this day. It's sitting at my dad's house on
unreal
blocks. Yeah, so I'm going to make sure that I soup it up and give it to my son for his 16th birthday.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm sure you had some good times in that Escalade or in the Cadillac cruising around, windows down, blaring some tunes, especially in the Sunshine State, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So you had, in terms of your NHL career, Stewie, you played, it was, we'll call it 3 full seasons, 262 games.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe you look back and would have liked to have a bit of a longer career, say, compared to your brother. If you could maybe give some advice to your younger self, something you could have told your younger self that maybe would have prolonged your career and allowed you to play a little bit longer, what do you think that would be?
I would probably tell myself you got to work as hard to stay in the NHL than to make the NHL. Like, when I was going into junior, when I first got there, and I was clean as a whistle, didn't party at all, wasn't into girls, and but once you get into the NHL, you're forced. You got all this money at your disposal, you got everything at your disposal, and you're living that Florida lifestyle. It can catch up to you. So I would say, hey, that would be a message to some of the organizations. You have a lot of those players that played in Florida, they underachieved because there wasn't really a system or a culture to sort of really get these guys focused on hockey. But for me, I take responsibility for my career as a first rounder, and I could honestly see myself playing in easily another 500-600 games if I just focused on bettering my game and trying to get better every single day. I was on a pretty good trajectory, but you have some injuries. I got hurt for 1 year. I had a couple contract disputes, and so I didn't really work as hard to stay in the NHL than it was to get to the NHL.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because you hear a lot of NHL guys talk about that they work their asses off to get to the league, and once they get there, like bit of the achiever's curse kind of sets in, right? Where okay, I made it, I hit my goal, I'm living the life, I can sit back and kind of enjoy all this freedom and this lifestyle that I built for myself. And I guess that compiled with the fact that, again, when you're young and in Florida, it could be a slippery slope in terms of keeping your head on straight,
Yeah, and I came up in a different time where you had to go out with the boys and have a good time, but little did I know these guys were doing it with $20 million in the bank account, not 20,000 like me. So
yeah.
Culture back then, but the message now for the kids now is just continue to work hard, and you can have your fun in the off season, but learn your body, learn what it takes to be a pro, and stretching and riding the bike and all those little details and doing cold tubs. I didn't learn that until I was like 27, 28 years old. And that's, by then the window's closing to become a regular National Hockey League player. So all those little fine details that it is tough to do, and it's tedious and it's boring. That's what makes the great players great. Crosby, this is a stretch. Connor McDavid does activation for 30 minutes a day. He's on the table. He's in the cold tub. He's in the hot tub. He's drinking specific type of water. So it's those little details and fine tuning your body. That's what keeps you there for sure. If I would have known the stuff, and again, I trained with Matt Nickel the final 3-4 years. I was already 26, 27. If I would have met him when I was 17 years old, I honestly believe I would have been an all-star just based on the stuff that he taught me and just having a mentor, having someone to be accountable to. So that's why I'm giving back now too, because there's some kids that have an amazing talent and an amazing natural talent and ability for the game of hockey, but skill is only one facet of the game. And there's a lot more on the mental side and the training side and the mentorship side that they don't even understand. So the earlier that they learn that and they get accustomed to what it takes to be a pro, some of these kids, I can see it right now at 14, 15, they're going to be better hockey players than myself, and that's a fact. Yeah,
for sure. It's funny. I've got a bit of, I would say a bit of a similar story on a lower grade, we'll call it. So I always wanted to play college hockey. That was my goal growing up as a youngster. And I was a goaltender. So if you think I'm a little weird, this is why.
Yeah.
But I always had that in my mind. And once I got to college in the States, I was like, okay, I made it. I'm here. And I relaxed a little bit. I took my foot off the pedal. I didn't take training as seriously as I probably should have. I fell into that party college lifestyle, and I hardly ended up playing in 4 years. I also got stuck behind a 6'4" All-American goaltender, but it's kind of similar to what happened a little bit in my career from again a lower grade perspective, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And there's only 8,000 people to ever make the National Hockey League, right? So when you put it in perspective, that just shows how hard it is, hard it is. And I'm sure there's, another 20,000 people in the world that are probably more skilled than myself, but they didn't work as hard. They weren't as good shape. They didn't have my size. So there's all these little recipes that it takes to make it and to stay there. It's honestly like winning the lottery.
It is. And the fact that your family won the lottery twice is even crazier, right? With like the fact, like one person making the show is astronomical odds, but having two from the same family, like almost impossible.
Yeah, and I took those lessons that I learned the hard way and I applied them to my brother. And my brother wasn't drafted to the OHL. He was a walk-on.
Yeah.
He went from walk-on to first-round NHL draft pick 3 years later. So there's different paths. There's different routes of getting there. But the common theme is hard work, dedication, being humble. So those are little tools that I try to teach the young kids, because everyone says, oh, I was good enough. For like Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. Oh, I was good enough, but this guy screwed me over. It's not about it comes down to how bad you want it and what you're willing to do to get it.
Yeah, for sure, man. What was the highlight of your NHL career? If you could pick out one moment.
It'd probably be the 1 year I played in Atlanta, because I didn't have a great season in Florida 2 years before, and I signed with the Thrashers, but I ended up in the minors, and everyone thought my career was done. But I had a great coach in Craig Ramsey who said, hey, forget about the past, come in and play. Whatever player you are in your head, play. And I went from, in the minors the year before to playing on a second line with Nick Antropov and Evander Kane. So from, feeling like your career is over to now having a starring role on a team in a short period of time, that was definitely the highlight of my career. But living in Atlanta was a black city, and seeing, minority people have wealth that wasn't just from sports. There was entertainment executives, there were lawyers, there were doctors of minority backgrounds. I really loved living in Atlanta, and that was one of the highlights of my career. And you ask a lot of people that played there, they have nothing but amazing things to say about the city of Atlanta. Yeah,
it's true. And it was the hockey market itself, like when the team was bad, which was most of the time, the fans didn't show. But when the team was doing well, people in Atlanta showed up and they supported the squad, right?
Yeah, when we played the Leafs, there was, obviously the Leaf fans would always come in there, and there'd be some nights where we'd have 16, 17,000 fans. But on the flip side, I remember they had a school day that it was a 12 o'clock game. The fans were supposed to come out from the schools, but then they had emergency testing. So we ended up going from supposed to have 12,000 kids from schools. We literally had like 400 fans. So,
come on.
So people ask me what's bubble hockey like. I know that feeling, because we literally had like 400 people in the stands. That
is wild, man. Speaking of bubble hockey, we're probably approaching it yet again with the playoffs around the corner. It's been such an interesting year for the NHL, and obviously a lot of us watch you on CBC most Saturday nights. How did you end up working with CBC? Was broadcasting something that was in the back of your mind when you were coming toward the end of your playing career, or is it something that just kind of you fell into and you hit it off big? Because like that's a pretty sweet position with CBC. It's very coveted. It seems like every retired NHL player wants to have their own podcast or be on TV. So how did it happen for you?
When I retired, I just try to make it a point to really start networking and meeting people, because as hockey players, you're in your routine, you have your small circle, you go to the rink, you come home, you go take a nap. So that's my one advice to players that are looking to get in. Make sure that you're networking, you're on social media, you're on LinkedIn. So I ended up getting linked up with Sportsnet was just because of my Twitter. I'd be tweeting all day, just dumb stuff, GIFs, and tweeting about hockey all day. And so it was more of an obsession being on Twitter all day. And then one of the program directors from Sportsnet said, hey, would you be interested in doing some radios? We're looking for some guys to get in for radio. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I made it another point to say, hey, I'm going to go all in with this, and I'm not going to say no. So I was doing some weird hours talking about the Leafs and going in at weird times in the morning and sitting in traffic. But I said, you know what, I'm going I'm not going to say no for the first year to see where this takes me. So I started off doing the Jeff Blair show, just talking about the Leafs. And I did a couple Hockey Centrals on TV. And I said, hey, I'm coming in. I don't really care to get paid, but can you get me some suits? So I got paid at suits the first year. And
nice.
So I really got my opportunity last year was during the pandemic. There wasn't any travel coming in and out of the city. So there was a lot of people flying in from the U.S. Colby Armstrong was flying in from Pittsburgh. Kelly Rudy was flying in from Calgary, and a couple guys flying in from Windsor and Ottawa. They needed some local guys to do the playoffs. So I ended up doing the playoffs last year in the bubble, and I got probably, they said, 2 years of experience in 2 months. I was doing 3 games in 1 day. So it was very challenging. But we had a good team behind the scenes sort of just helping me and how, with taking pointers and how to sit and how to talk and how to deal with the microphone and then the earphones. And so it was definitely a great experience. And to get that experience during a pandemic and now turning it into a career so far, I'm definitely grateful for that opportunity that Sportsnet and CBC has given me.
What's more nerve-wracking, being on live TV or playing live in the NHL?
Live TV is fine. But when you got Ron McLean looking at you or he throws a curveball at you, that's probably the most intimidated I've ever been. He's sitting from you and he'll ask you, so what do you think about this? And you have no idea what he's talking about. And you're like, and he puts you on the spot. And that's probably the most intimidating I've ever been. But they've been great. Ron has been great. Elliot Freeman, Jeff Merrick, David Amber, all those guys that have been doing this for 20, 30 years have been very welcoming. They're not looking at me like the new kid on the block. They're helping me out. If I mess up, they give me a little wink. Don't worry about it. So that's definitely been, they've been great in the transition for sure.
And one thing that I hear sometimes from people just watching CBC is like, they'll be talking about the broadcaster saying like, is this scripted? Like, did they plan on talking this? Is he reading off a teleprompter? Like, these are things that fans ask sometimes when they watch CBC. So I guess my question is, how much of what you guys talk about is, like you said, pre-rehearsed? I know there's no teleprompter, I don't think anyways. But how much of it is ad-libbed versus how much you guys are talking about maybe during intermissions?
You have a script and, hey, we're going to talk about this. Hey, you're going to talk about the Leafs power play. But the key is now you got to take as many notes as possible, because you forget probably about 60% of the things you write down. So the key is to write down as much and try to keep it. But I think the real challenge now is, you know what you want to say, but then it's got to match up the clips. So that's part of it. And some of these guys are pros where I'm writing down, my script is, you got 50 lines of notes for me. And then I look across and I see Elliot Freeman and he's got like one little paragraph, one little line. I'm like, okay, how do you talk for 15 minutes based off of 2 lines, and here I am scrambling and stumbling when I got 2-page worth of notes. So it's definitely a science to it, but they've been very great in the training and the grooming and giving me the opportunity to sort of learn as I go along.
So obviously Brian Burke left CBC to take the job in Pittsburgh. But what was it like being on air with him? I mean, Berkey's such a beauty. Can you talk about just the relationship with him and even just what it's like watching games with him, like, during the periods before you guys get on air?
Yeah, Berkey, he has the shell where he's grumpy and, he looks miserable, but I'm telling you, he's probably one of the funniest guys that I've come across in hockey. And he's got probably one of the best one-liners for every single situation that I've heard. And, I knew I was validated. I was a little bit intimidated when I first met him, but after a couple of weeks of doing the show, he pulled me aside and he said, Stewie, you know what, we'd make great teammates. So from then, when he said that, I knew that I was cool in his book and I could sort of let my guard down. And he was great in helping groom me as well too, and giving me pointers. And I'd ask him questions on how the league would work and everything like that. So Berkey's probably one of the best hockey people in the whole entire business, and the connections that he has and the coaching tree, the people that he's given an opportunity to has been amazing. And I think he's probably one of the top people in hockey of all time. And I'm grateful and happy that I've had the opportunity to work with him and call him my friend to this day.
Like, I hate to say this, I'm sure you're not it's not the first time you hear this, but it's just the whole Hockey Night in Canada, it doesn't have the same feel this year without the fans. Yeah,
it's tough. And you see the big goals being scored by Toronto and Connor McDavid dazzling, and the big moments happening at the Bell Center in Montreal. It's just not not the great job with the fans, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I can imagine as a fan not being able to watch it in person, and it really takes away from the element. But I think the National Hockey League has done an amazing job, sort of with the sound effects and the entertainment of the product, where sometimes you don't notice. You really do notice, but sometimes you forget for a split second. But it's our job now to put on a show and try to entertain, and that's why you got guys like myself and Kevin Bieksa who's cracking jokes, and so it's not just a hockey show; it's a little bit of an entertainment show, and I'm happy to contribute contribute to that any way I can.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, sometimes you don't even notice. I really don't notice during the week when I'm watching games. The only time it kind of hits me is on Saturday night when, again, it's just like the energy in the city when the Leafs are playing the Habs, getting together with your buddies. You got the beers going, you got the game going. It's just not. It's tough. It's just not the same. But hopefully we'll get back to some normalcy.
I want to know who the sound effect guy is, because I think I heard him mixing in a shoot when the Leafs run the power play too. So he's staying true to how the fans would be if they were at the Scotia Pond Arena.
Scotia Pond. Well, hopefully they listen, because the Leafs do got to shoot on the power play. It's driving me crazy.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that is. Anyway, Stewie, I got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll let you go. It's been great chatting with you. I want to ask you really quickly. Obviously, anyone who plays in the KHL has got KHL stories, so it would be rude for me to not at least ask you, Stewie. You played a bit in the K. Is there a good story you can spill the beans on?
It was an experience, good, bad, or indifferent. But
Yep.
It started from when I first got there, and someone's supposed to pick you up from the airport, and I was waiting there for like an hour and a half, and again, you don't really have any contacts or phone numbers to call, so I messaged the team on Twitter like, "Hey, I'm at the airport. I've been waiting for 2 hours." And they responded like, "LOL." I'm like, okay, that's not really funny. So a guy comes and he picks me up, and normally, you want to go back because you've been traveling for 24 hours and go get some sleep. No, you got to go right to the arena and watch the game. And so I'm here, half asleep trying to watch this game, and you got to meet everybody. And that's another thing in Russia. Everyone shakes hands. Every morning you have to shake everybody's hand. So it's kind of weird now thinking about that in a pandemic. But shaking hands every morning was a custom over there. And I found it odd that the team was called Automobilist where I was, and I didn't have a car. I had to walk to the arena every day, 20 minutes, and you'd have to walk through this park, and there'd be, bears, on leashes getting walked, or camels, and doing little shows for the park. So it was a weird experience, but it was an experience nonetheless that I wouldn't change. And but it's a different side of hockey, and just experience a different culture. It was definitely different.
Wow. Bears on leashes putting on shows. Is that what you said?
Yeah, juggling or riding a unicycle or something crazy like that. So I would take the long way. If you cut through the park, it'd be about 14 minutes, but 20 minutes if you went the long way. But there were some shady happenings in that Russian park for sure.
Were you carrying a bear spray with you just in case?
No, it was a tame bear.
That is wild. Oh my God, man. Okay. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one from the K, but that's cool. Stewie, to wrap up, tell us a little bit about, I know you're super involved in giving back to the community, and you've got a charity, Hockey Equality. Tell us a little bit about that, and where you see that going, some of the initiatives that you're driving these days.
Well, I had a lot of families go above and beyond for myself and my brother in helping us get to the National Hockey League. But that was 20, 25 years ago, where hockey was, for probably, GTHL, AAA hockey is $2,000, $3,000 max. But right now the costs are way too high, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. So that's too big of a burden for an individual family or, anybody to sort of handle. So we started this non-for-profit charity called Hockey Equality, and the website's hockeyequality.org. And what we're doing is we're trying to alleviate a lot of the hard costs that come with the game of hockey. We're paying for equipment, we're paying for registration, we're having scholarships, for ice time. So we're just trying to now take away a lot of those hard costs, because if the prices were now what they were back then, my family would not burden anyone else to try to absorb that cost. It's way too much. And I think that's the real tragedy in Canada, that there would be no Anthony Stewart or Chris Stewart or Wayne Simmons or Devontae Smith-Pelly or Joel Ward, because our families would just say, hey, you know what, pick up a basketball, pick up a soccer ball. So it's our job now to try to give back to the community and give back to the game. That's helped my family directly and indirectly, and I'm doing my best to pay it forward, and I'm doing that through the foundation of Hockey Quality. Yeah,
and it's an amazing initiative, because I mean, if there's one knock on the sport of hockey, it's that it's expensive, and it's been a factor that I think that has held back the growth. Not just in Canada, but in the States and maybe worldwide, is that you have a lot of families that it's easy for the parents to say, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm not buying you new skates every year, a new helmet. Like, you're out of your mind. Go pick up a soccer ball. It's, $12 for a ball. So that's the only thing with hockey that is a bit of a challenge, I think, to overcome. So it's amazing that you guys are doing that. And, that's keep up the great work, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time with everything. Thank you.
Love it. You bet, man. Where can people find you on social media and your podcast?
You can find me at Stewart.hockey on Instagram, at Stu Munro on Twitter, and Hockey Central podcast is every day. It's on Spotify or Apple, and you can find it at Hockey Central.
Awesome. Stewie, anything else you want to say before we sign off, my friend?
Go Leafs, go. They're going to the conference finals. So I think that they just got to fix up some of those details, fine-tune their game, get the power play together, get some timely saves, and they'll be all right. They have the firepower and the depth this year that they didn't have in years past. I think if they get that together and focus on those details, they'll be a Stanley Cup contender.
Awesome, man. Well, after the Leafs win the Cup, we'll bring you back on. How does that sound?
Absolutely. Go Leafs, go.
Okay. All right, Anthony Stewart, thanks a lot, my friend. Appreciate you having on the podcast.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.